Kia ora and welcome. I hope you've grabbed a cuppa and you're all comfortable. We'll kick off in just a moment. And while you settle in, here's the question to sit with tonight. Not, do I know what I should do with my money, but am I actually doing it? Because almost everyone in this room already knows the broad strokes, I'm sure. Spend less than you earn, invest the difference, start early, knowing it has never been the hard bit. The distance between good intentions and financial success is what we call the knowing doing gap. And tonight is about helping you close it. You'll leave with tangible, do it this week tips, not theory. And a quick word on who's talking at you for the next while. Then I promise we get straight into the useful stuff. I'm Katie Wesney. I'm a financial advisor and coach and the national coaching lead at Enable Me. I'm also a chartered accountant with more than 20 years across accounting, investment banking, and consulting. I've built and sold my own business, worked across Europe, the US, and here in New Zealand. And I write and comment in the media on this stuff. And I tell you all of this not to impress you, but so you know, the advice tonight is hard won and it's practical. And here's the important bit. I don't sell products. My job as an Enable Me coach is to optimize the outcome for you and help you to reach your financial potential, whatever that looks like in your life. And I think that we've always kind of rallied or against that more traditional advice, which often starts with a product to sell. Coaching starts with you. And I'd like you to hold on to that distinction. It's the thread running through everything tonight. And I've got a bit of a compliance moment so I don't get in trouble. 30 seconds and we'll get through it together. So everything tonight is for information only. It is general in nature and not a substitute for regulated, personalized financial advice. Please don't go home and make a big money decision purely off a webinar, including this one. And if something really lands with you tonight, the right next step is with a conversation about your actual numbers, not a copy and paste of someone else's strategy. That's exactly what a personalized session with a qualified advisor is for. And let's make this interactive straight away. I'd love to see where the room sits. So jump into the poll. What do you currently invest in? KiwiSaver, investment property, shares, managed funds, term deposit, high interest savings, or completely valid to say nothing yet. There's no wrong answers here, and nobody can see the individual responses, so just be honest. And to be clear, I'm watching for two things. A lot of people only have KiwiSaver and savings, which is definitely a foundation. It's just not a plan. And if you have a bit of everything with no strategy tying it together, both are really common and both are completely fixable. So keep your answer in mind as we go. Okay, interesting. Cool, cool. Quite the spread. Okay, great. I will speak to that. And so before we talk about how, let's be honest on the why. So why prioritize building wealth at all? Because wealth isn't about being flash. It's really not. It's about options and flexibility. It improves your security and takes the daily stress down a notch. It lets you solve a problem when life throws one at you. It just creates more choices, changing careers, going part-time, helping a child onto the property ladder. It lets you be ambitious and dream a little bit bigger. And crucially, it funds the retirement you actually want rather than the one you end up settling for. And I hope you've noticed none of these are to be rich. Wealth is just a tool that buys you choices. When you're clear on which of these matters most to you, every decision afterwards gets easier, mark my words. And tonight, I would like you to finish this sentence. I want to build wealth so that I can. That single line becomes the destination we point everything toward. So here's why it's urgent and not just a nice to have. We often confuse wealth with greed, and that confusion costs people dearly. So look at the numbers. 44% of Kiwis feel prepared for retirement, which means most of us aren't. 54% worry about money daily or weekly. That's stress sitting on more than half the room. And 70% expect to work past retirement age, mostly not by choice. And the whole point of this is growing wealth is not a luxury. It's how you buy yourself out of that worry and into choice, less stress, more options, and a better future. And I think here's the kicker. Most of these people in the statistics know they should be doing more. They're not uninformed, they're stuck in the knowing doing gap. That's precisely the gap a coach like myself exists to help you cross. And let's be very clear on the myths because they're the handbrake keeping good people parked. You may have heard of wealth creation is only for the ultra wealthy. It's not. That you need like a big lump sum to start, that it's basically gambling, that it's only for people with a finance degree, or that it eats all of your time. And here's what we say at Enable Me. Wealth is for everyone. There are options to suit whatever risk level you're comfortable with. The single most important thing, honestly, is to start. And you engage an advisor precisely so you don't have to become a full-time expert. And I think the biggest misconception I see is people coming in for a single solution, saying, well, I just want to pay off my mortgage, thinking one product is the answer. It almost never is. We don't just look at property or funds or KiwiSaver in isolation. We look at every part of your finances and get the sequencing right so you reach your goals as fast as possible. And that's the whole reason we exist, to give our clients that holistic, whole of life view is the difference between coaching and traditional product-led advice. A product sells, a product seller almost asks, kind of, what can I sell you? A coach asks, what's the smartest next move across your entire situation? I've sat across from builders, accountants, and economists who aren't doing as well as they should. Knowledge alone isn't the answer. The right structure and follow through is. And let's talk about the elephant in every financial conversation right now, uncertainty. Interest rates, inflation, the cost of living, the headlines, the election. It is so noisy out there. And here's the reframe I would like you to catch. Uncertainty isn't new, it's the normal investing environment. What actually causes problems isn't volatility. Volatility is the price we pay for returns. What is the problem is a lack of preparation. A clear plan gives you something to anchor to when the headlines get really loud, and they are really loud at the moment. It helps you stay the course when things feel uncomfortable, and it nudges you to act when an opportunity actually appears. And to be clear, the goal was never certainty. Nobody can sell you that. The goal is resilience and confidence in your next decision. A good plan doesn't remove uncertainty, it helps you move forward anyway. And so, what I would like you to do next time a scary headline tempts you to react, ask one question. Does this change my 10-year plan? Almost always the answer is no, and that question alone will save you from expensive mistakes. And this is one of the most important slides tonight. So stay with me. Everyone wants to talk about retirement, wealth creation. That is the top of the pyramid, but that's the destination, not those crucial steps that we start with. And that bottom layer is what matters most. Cash flow management, money habits, goal setting, debt and mortgage management, insurance, KiwiSaver. How do I put this? It's like the concrete slab your whole financial life sits on. Admittedly, it's not exciting. It's not Instagram worthy, but if it's weak, everything you build on top eventually cracks. And I'm going to be really honest with you. You cannot out invest bad cash flow or out earn disorganization. Wealth is never built on messy debt and leaky money habits. When more comes in than goes out and debt is under control, progress genuinely accelerates. And again, I think in terms of our lens, the difference is almost like those product-led conversations skip straight to the top of the pyramid because that's where the product lives. We start at that foundation because that's where your results are actually coming from. Strong foundations. I know they don't feel dramatic. They often feel kind of dull, but they're what makes everything else possible. And money is emotional and it's personal, so let's name it. And we all have a money personality. Maybe you're a plotter, steady and consistent, a shopper, you enjoy spending, or a natural saver, like my husband. And we each have a different approach to risk. The adventurer will back themselves, the safety warden who wants certainty, or the dreamer who's really hoping the universe will provide. None of these are right or wrong, but your tendencies quietly drive your financial decisions, and your risk tolerance shapes how you build wealth. And why it matters, I think awareness of your own habits is what lets you build a strategy that actually fits you, one you'll stick with, rather than copying a plan built for someone wired completely different. And often people have a quick laugh in terms of diagnosing their own personalities, their partners. So think about what type you are. And I think often the mismatch between two partners' money personalities is one of the most common sources of friction in relationships. And I think often naming it is the first step to fixing it. And again, nothing's right or wrong. It's how do we design a plan that speaks to your personalities to ensure that you are heard and you will stick to the plan. And when we think about, well, okay, well, Katie, how do we start? So I think every good plan begins with an honest look at your starting point, not where you wish you were, but where you actually are. And we look at your cash flow. Is more coming in than going out? Look at your debts, short-term debt, the mortgage, your savings, your goals, and the time frame to reach them. How you're positioned to maximize opportunities and the behavioral tendencies we can lean in. And again and again, I'm going to say this to you, cash flow means more in than out. Please check it. Short-term debt, it just slows wealth. So please prioritize clearing that. Make sure your mortgage has a real repayment plan and set goals and actually track them and know your money habits. And honestly, sometimes progress simply starts with an independent, objective set of eyes on where you're actually starting from. Because again, it's really hard to read the label from inside the jar. And there's no judgment in our room, just a clear picture. And now a quiet danger that feels completely safe, leaving too much money in the bank. Inflation is the silent thief of your wealth. I mean, look at the maths. To outpace inflation of just 3% a year and keep the same buying power, 100,000 nest egg today would need to grow to about 116,000 in 5 years, 135,000 in 10, and over 180,000 in 20. Money sitting in a low interest account is quietly going backwards. Mark my words. And again, a takeaway for you, hold enough cash for your emergency buffer or short-term needs and no more. If time is on your side, a wealth strategy isn't optional, it is essential. Interest alone won't grow real wealth. And so, what actually is a wealth plan? And plenty of people, when I say this, kind of nod along to the phrase without ever having seen one. And a wealth plan brings together different asset types with a clear hold or sell strategy designed to provide the cash flow that meets your financial goals. It is not a hot tip or a single product. It's the architecture that ties everything together. And it starts by knowing five things: your starting point, your end game, where do you need to land in terms of retirement, what is your number, how long you've got, your behavioral tendencies. So that's that personality element and risk tolerance. And frankly, the hand that you've been dealt. Get those clear, and the right strategy almost designs itself. And for us, that initial consultation with a coach, where we show our clients the destination, and working with us in program builds the road to get there. So tonight we're mostly talking about the destination. The plan is how you actually arrive. And let's talk about the biggest asset most Kiwis will ever own, the family home and the mortgage attached to it. And for most people, getting rid of the mortgage on your owner-occupied home as quickly as possible is the first goal. That's your guaranteed tax-free return. But, and this is the bit most people miss, you don't have to be completely mortgage free to start using your property to leverage and grow wealth. And I think this is exactly where a holistic view beats product-led advice. The mortgage isn't a debt, isn't just a debt to clear. Structured well, it is one of your most powerful wealth building tools you have. And most people only ever see one side of that coin, and it absolutely guts me. So what I want you to be asking yourself, if you do have a mortgage, when does my fixed rate roll off and what does my repayment plan actually look like? If you can't answer that quickly in your head now, that's the first conversation to have. And I'm an accountant, so love a good graph, but let me walk you through this picture because it makes the cost of just coasting really visual. So if you carry your mortgage right up to 65, which to be clear is what the average New Zealander is doing right now. So the average Kiwi buys their first home at 35-ish, and it takes them 30 years to clear the mortgage. So if you've got your mortgage right up to 65, your retirement options just get squeezed, and KiwiSaver on its own often won't stretch far enough. So see that gap on the chart? That's the runway problem. You need to know how long you've got to grow wealth and clear that gap before you stop working. And paying the mortgage off faster doesn't just save you interest, it buys you years of runway to build real wealth. And every year you free up earlier is a year your money can work for you instead of the bank. And again, something to reiterate and really catch, even small regular increases to your repayments, they shorten that runway dramatically. And we can model exactly what a little extra each fortnight does to your timeline. And for our clients, we want to be really strategic around what that mortgage structure looks like to mitigate interest and give you maximum flexibility. Really important to get right. And look at the difference a plan makes. Same person, two futures. And in this scenario, the mortgage is gone by 55 instead of 65. That's 10 years extra to invest and compound. But here's the honest part. Even then, without a strategy, the savings can still run out at about 80. So paying the mortgage off early creates the opportunity. The wealth plan is what makes the money actually last. And those early mortgage repayments, then wealth creation, then deliberate post-retirement wealth management, each stage feeds the next. That's the road being built stage by stage. And none of this works without a goal worth chasing. So let's talk about goal setting quickly. So, knowing how much you'll need, how long you've got, and your tolerance for risk and volatility will shape the approach that suits you. But, and people skip this, you also have to factor in your natural tendencies. So you set a goal that's sexy enough or exciting enough to actually keep you motivated when life gets busy. Because I don't know about you, I have three teenagers, a husband, I work, and I've got aging parents that I look after. It's a lot. And again, I think one of the most practical tips tonight, have real specific conversations with your partner about what your ideal future actually looks like and have them early. Comfortable means different things to different people. Misaligned goals quietly derail more plans than bad investments ever do. And a goal you feel something about is a goal you'll stick to. That it's like that emotional kind of hook is what carries you across the knowing doing gap on the days motivation runs really low, which ebbs and flows for most of us, let's be honest. So, okay, so what do I actually invest in? Here's the menu, and it's bigger than most people realize. Shares, bonds, a business, managed funds, property, index funds, and ETFs, term deposits, gold, forestry, collectibles, even digital currencies. Lots of doors. Not all of them suit your situation. Some need more capital to start, others need time or genuine expertise. Higher potential reward almost always comes with greater uncertainty. And I think that is exactly why a shopping list of products isn't a strategy. The right answer isn't which of these is best, it's which mix balances risk, accessibility, and your long-term goals for you. That's a whole of situation question, not a product question. And let's make the risk and return relationship really simple because it governs everything on the previous slide. So risk and return, they go hand in hand. Down here, the cash and term deposits are stable, but won't grow your wealth much. And as you move up, bonds, managed funds, etc., the potential return rises, and so does the volatility along the way. And to be clear, if you've got a big savings gap to close, you may need higher returns to get there, which means accepting more risk. And the size of your gap should inform where you sit on the curve. It's not about being brave or cautious, it's about what your goal mathematically requires. And again, I feel like I'm repeating myself. I'm trying not to. Don't pick an investment first. Work out the return your goal needs, then choose the right path that realistically gets you there. A good plan is always going to balance risk, return, and then your actual needs in that order. And let's tackle a question I get constantly. Is KiwiSaver still worth it? Oh my God, absolutely. It's deducted before you see it. Your employer chips in, free money, a little bit of government money on the table for some, even with the recent changes. It's a brilliant low friction foundation. But, and this is a big but, it shouldn't be your only retirement plan. For most people, it won't cover the full gap, and the funds are locked away until 65. So if you're hoping to retire or ease off before then, you need investments outside of KiwiSaver. And again, what I want you to be thinking about is, when did you last check which KiwiSaver fund you're actually in? A surprising number of people are sitting in conservative or default fund when the time frame calls for growth. So please ensure you log in and check. It's 5 minutes. That can be worth tens of thousands over time. And let's go through the main options. Honestly, the good and the not so good. First up, term deposits and short-term savings. On the benefits side, they're liquid, safe, they're passive, easy to execute, and you can time them to when you need the money. Like, really genuinely useful tools, but the drawbacks are low returns and inflation quietly eating into the real value. Again, that's that silent thief again. And where they fit, I think term deposits, if you don't have lending, are great for kind of a buffer or money you'll need soon. They're a parking spot, not a growth engine. And the question is always, do they fit your overall strategy, or are they just where you've landed by default? And next, managed funds. There are really there's some useful data points on the screen. So look at the average returns over 5 years by fund type. So conservative around 2.67, balanced 5.19, growth 7, and aggressive 8.48 after fees and before tax. That spread between conservative and growth is enormous when you compound it over decades. And it usually comes down to which fund you've simply defaulted to. So again, while lots of my clients will invest in managed funds along the way, it's just more where do they lean in terms of asset class. They're liquid, they're diversified. Again, that's really useful. Just got to watch out for fees, and sometimes there's an overwhelming amount of choice and real volatility along the way. So my advice is always to choose your time frame and goals first, and then pick the fund, never the other way around. And property, again, asset class Kiwis love, and the one with the most nuance, if I'm honest with you. The benefits is a stable asset class. It can produce rental yield, it provides growth, it's tangible, and crucially, it can be leveraged in a way most assets can't. Problem being is you can't eat property. There's a low liquidity, a high entry cost, and not all properties are made equal. And there is a limited time frame for lending as you get older. So it is not a set and forget. And I think this is a really useful rule of thumb for lots of people. If your retirement gap is greater than 300,000, you'll likely need leverage to bridge it. And property is often how that's done. Due diligence is everything. The right property builds wealth. The wrong one will drain it. This is precisely where good advice earns its keep, honestly. And again, let me show you that power of leverage. So I'm just going to pause on this. So say you have 160,000 to invest, and both options are at 5%. Option one, put it in a managed fund. Your asset is 160,000 and a 5% a year gives you $8,000. There's no tricks around this. Option two, use it as a deposit on an $800,000 property. Now you're getting growth on 800,000, not 160,000. In this example, after topping up around $60 a week to cover costs, the net return is approximately 37,000 versus 8,000 in the fund. That's a fund. That's the same money working for far harder because you're growing the whole asset, not just a slice of it. And the rental income helps carry the costs along the way. But a word of caution, leverage magnifies losses too, and it only suits the right person in the right position. So this is illustrative, not a recommendation, but it shows why the strategy you choose can matter more than the return rate. And before we land the plane, let's talk about the avoidable mistakes, because dodging these is often worth more than any hot, clever investment pick. So the big ones, not getting the right advice. And I'm going to be blunt. Your neighbor, your mates, your family are not financial advisors, likely, however well-meaning. A lack of diversification, too many eggs, one basket. Not prioritizing short-term, high-interest debt before investing, waiting too long, um, investing everything without leaving an emergency buffer, and making emotional decisions in the heat of a market moment. And there's a pattern underneath them all. Notice that almost none of them are about picking the wrong fund. They're about behavior, they're about structure, knowing better but doing otherwise, that knowing doing gap again. So when you look at those mistakes, pick one on that list that stings a little just now. That is your single highest value fix. I would like you to start there. So, which approach is right? And the honest answer is it does depend. And I promise that's not a cop out. It's the whole point. And the best approach for you depends on, again, your time frame, your goals, your appetite for risk, and your actual capacity for risk, which are all different things. Your cash flow needs, your flexibility, your ability to access lending, your access to equity, and the size of your wealth goal. And why I'd like this to be liberating for you, not frustrating, there is no single right strategy, only the one that fits your life, your timing, and your constraints. And comparison is expensive. Customization is powerful. For many people, the biggest accelerant isn't picking better investments, it's using what they already have, especially equity and mortgage access, more intelligently. And that Buffett line on that slide, time in the market is far better than timing the market. Most wealth is lost waiting for the perfect moment to start. Simple, well-structured and sustained beats complex and perfectly timed every single time. So let's pull it all together. If you can remember nothing else, remember these. Start with the problem you're actually trying to solve. Understand what each investment really requires of you and be clear of your time frames. Know your own risk preferences and work with a trusted expert. Consistently I see lots of people look for a single solution without realizing they actually need strategic sequencing, the right moves in the right order across their whole financial life. That's a holistic view, and that's at the heart of what we do. And it's the opposite of advice that just sells you a product. And everything tonight, you probably kind of half knew already. The value was never just information, it's turning good intentions into action. And that's why we exist as coaches to close that knowing doing gap with you, not just to hand you a to-do list. And so, what's the practical next step? Well, for us, it's a financial consultation, a 60 to 90-minute strategy session with a qualified Enable Me financial advisor and coach. Let me tell you exactly what happens so there's no mystery. We get the full picture of your finances, assets, income, spending, debt, your mindset and your goals. We identify the inefficiencies, which generally speaking is about 15% of someone's net income slips through the cracks. Our job is to find that and put that to better use. Those inefficiencies look like lots of different things. It can be wasteful spending, bank fees, often the mortgage structure. It just all quietly costs you. And we investigate your trajectory, where your current default is taking you versus what you might gain with a real plan. And I think in that initial session, it's about showing you your destination, and then when a client chooses to work with us in program is when we build the road together. And that initial session gives you clarity and direction. And our 12-month coaching program is where we actually walk with you and turn intentions into results. So after that session, you decide your next move. You can continue into Enable Me coaching, but there is absolutely no obligation to do it if it's not right for you. And I think worst case, you walk away with a clear, independent read on where you're heading, which is invaluable in my mind. So we have a wee offer for you tonight. And I think if tonight has shown you anything, it's this: the environment has changed and doing nothing is a decision, just not usually a good one. So here's your invitation. Book your consultation at enable.me/financial success, or you can scan that QR code. It's normally valued at $400, but if you book tonight and only tonight, the 17th of June, it is $100, which is amazing. After tonight, it goes to 149. It's still great. So don't wait until you've sorted everything out first. That's exactly backwards. The session is how you sort it out, and clarity beats comfort, and action beats waiting. And I think knowing what to do has likely never been your problem. Doing it is where we come in. So book tonight and let's build your road together. And that brings us to questions. So you've submitted some great questions. This is always my favorite part of the evening. And just a reminder before my amazing producer, Amelia, goes through these questions, I can't give individual advice in a public forum. So if your question is super specific to your numbers, that's the perfect thing to bring to a consultation where we can look at it properly. Okay, Amelia, hit me.
Thank you, Katie. We had some great questions. The first question is, I have a budget that I have had some help with making, but it hasn't been finalized.
Mm.
I keep finding other things to do and putting it off. I feel stuck and overwhelmed about starting to look at my money and taking action steps. I have a history of worrying about money, not making enough, and spending it carelessly, and also being scared to spend it when I have it.
Mm,
Do you have any tips for this person?
yeah, yeah, absolutely not alone. Um, I think to reassure you, a budget will never be perfect, and I think waiting for perfect is the trap. My advice would just to be put it into action, test it, and adjust it as you go. And often, what's super useful for our clients is to build a really robust account structure around it that makes sticking to it almost automatic. In terms of like feed into an account that day-to-day spend, have an upper limit. So then that's a feedback loop in terms of where you'd like to be. And I think that tracking it is really powerful as well. And I think that clarity brings confidence, and that only ever comes from taking the first action. So just do it.
Thank you. The next question, is it better to use savings to offset my mortgage or put them in KiwiSaver?
Such a good question. I always get asked this. And again, first things first, really important to have a buffer. That's a non-negotiable foundation for all of my clients. Um, with a mortgage, I generally favor offsetting debt, provided that you can re-access the funds because it's just more interest efficient. Um, for KiwiSaver, I always want to ensure that you're matching, if cash flow allows, what your employer contributes. And then for most of my clients, with a good plan and a structure, they're channeling anything over and above that into clearing debt and growing flexible wealth. But again, comes down to your own goals, your own timelines, and preferences. Great question, Amelia.
We've had just questions that are kind of related that came through our
Mm,
Q&A box.
great.
So someone asked, what percentage of short-term savings would you recommend having available to readily access if needed?
Oh,
And
great
then they
question.
gave a percentage. They said 30 to 50% of annual income, or like that.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
someone else asked, can an emergency fund be too big? It feels like a
Yes.
shame to have a large sum of
A
money just
hundred
sitting
percent.
there.
Yeah, 100%. It can be too big. And I often think when people talk about percentages, I think, oh, have you been reading personal finance books or listening to podcasts whereby lots of hypothetical theories? Pragmatically, a buffer, it needs to be 3 to 6 months of expenditure. That's what you need as a buffer. Yes, it can be too big because if you have over and above that kind of 6 months of kind of spend, kind of languishing there, it's not doing anything for you. So that's inefficient, and you effectively bank a loss on that incremental piece. So, yes, it can be too big. Think about 6 months of expenditure. Try not to get caught up on percentages. At Enable Me, we're pragmatic and we design plans based on you and your numbers and your life. But great questions. Thank you.
Another question that has been submitted, pre-submitted, this is, I'm thinking about investing and saving for our two young kids' futures. Do you have any tips on how to best go about this?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm gonna be direct, which you probably got is my vibe. Um, Sort yourself out first. I think a strong financial position yourself gives you more ability to help your children. And more importantly, by you sorting yourself out, you teach them the rules of the game and they do what you do. Remember, kids do what you do, not what you say. And that is my best advice and the best investment you can make for them, in my mind.
We had another question come through in our Q&A box. Broadly speaking, should people pay off their owner-occupied mortgage before investing in shares?
Uh, Not necessarily. It depends. And again, it depends on goals, time frames, and risk. Fundamentally, that paying off the mortgage strategy faster is fundamental, but there is a point in time where we want to start to invest as well. So again, just comes down to returns, timeline, and goal. Great question.
And then let's make this our last question. Another question that came through in our Q&A box is about our consultation, our initial consultation. Do you provide a report or summary after this consultation,
Yes.
like the
Yep.
identification of inefficiencies?
Yeah, yep, absolutely. So again, as you might have guessed, we shoot from the hip. We tell you exactly where we believe your inefficiencies are and what you need to do to solve them and what that trajectory looks like. So it's quite an intense consultation, but really exciting because lots of people are not trained to see the opportunities or the inefficiencies. And I've been at Enable Me for over 10 years now, and I love what we do. I wouldn't still be here if I didn't. And it's really awesome to understand how you can make the financial progress you deserve, not by earning more or working harder, but by getting that position working as hard as possible. It's really powerful. So, again, we'll be super pragmatic in that session, give you lots of tips and tricks, leaves no stone unturned because remember, we're not just looking at a product. We're not saying just invest in a property or invest in managed funds. We're not just looking at KiwiSaver, we're looking at everything and understanding, well, what is that holistic picture? And then we summarize that in a wee email in terms of main points. And lots of my clients make copious amounts of notes within that session. And again, for lots of people after that initial session, then they might choose to work with us in one of our programs, just in terms of that accountability and that execution piece, in terms of really sharpening the axe and getting really fast results.
Thank you, Katie. We've run out of time. Sorry, we can't answer everyone's questions. If you have any other questions about what we do, please email or call us. Our contact information is on our website. Thank you for joining us. Katie, I'll hand it back to you to close off.
Oh, thanks, Amelia. So thank you so much for giving me your evening. You've showed up, which means you've already done the hardest bit, deciding to act. So honestly, take that momentum, book your session, and let's turn those good intentions into real financial success. Good evening.